Konstantinovich Management and BK Securities. Welcome to the Wall Street Watchlist show. So we're going to do this show every Sunday, and we're going to review the performance of S&P 500 or its ETF SPY, the NASDAQ or the QQQ, and the DIA or the Dow Jones. Let's start off with the SPY. So I wanted to show you guys for last week, there's been kind of several key developments on the SPY charts. Starting in October here, you can see the SPX or the SPY ETF made a bottom here. Okay, and since then, the index is up 17.32% from its lows down here in October. Okay, so pretty good end of 2022 and the beginning of 2023. A few key things that I kind of want to show you guys here. So you'll notice that there's two of these moving average lines. So this is the 50 moving average, the blue one, and 200 moving average is the red one. Okay, and then we have a few support and resistance points that are crucial for the index or the SPY ETF, and I'll show you kind of why we've been so bullish. If we look here, we can see a support zone that's been tested several times here. You can see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and it held. Okay, and some of the key things that we need to look at here. First, this candle here broke the 50 moving average on daily candles, okay, which is usually a bullish signal, and that's why we can see the index kind of advancing forward. But more importantly here, we actually just recently closed above the 200 moving average, okay, and that's a pretty bullish sign for the market. So we can kind of see that after we closed, obviously a lot of traders were wondering, hey, is it going to stay there? Is it going to stay above that, or is it going to go above the line and then come back down, as we've seen kind of over here in this region, over here in this region, and over here in this region. So we've kind of seen it happen 3 times already, where the S&P 500 breached this red line here just to come back below it every time, right? So naturally, a lot of the investors were kind of wondering, and traders, hey, is that going to happen this time around too, right? And that's why a lot of people were kind of cautious at the beginning of this breach here. But nevertheless, usually that's a bullish sign. So we can see here that the price kept on advancing. And what's interesting, and what kind of everybody's been waiting for, and you probably heard it in news and on social media, you can see this red line, okay, that's been basically terrorizing the SPY ETF price for months now, right? Like we're looking at all the way back here since essentially mid-December of 2021, beginning of 2022. This diagonal resistance has bounced off the SPY on several occasions, right? So, and finally here, we have breached the dreaded trend line, right? So now this is a pretty bullish momentum to most traders and investors, okay? But not to get carried away, there's some pretty significant resistance coming here. You can see there's been one touch point here and another touch point here, and we're kind of approaching that somewhere in this area here. So I expect resistance level to be at about 412 level, right? So this is a pretty strong resistance level, right? And then after that, there is another level here that used to be support, right? And then we know that whatever was support later turns into resistance, which we see here, right? And that coming back below it. So we're going to have another test if it breaks this at about 117 level. Okay. So from a daily perspective, I just want to show you that we've breached the 50 moving average. We breached the 200 moving average. We breached the diagonal resistance line, which has basically kept the price of the SPY ETF down since beginning of 2022, right? And so now we're headed higher for now, right? So that's the daily candles in the short term, right? Now, if we look at the weekly candles here, a couple of different items to kind of look at, okay? So here it's a little bit different. Okay, so we see that last week was really good for the markets, specifically for all 3 indices, but the S&P 500 has went up quite a bit over the last week, right? We're looking at an increase of 2.2%. Okay. And so a couple of things that were super crucial. Again, we see that trend line, right? That's been terrorizing the index and rebounded pretty much at every touch point here. Okay. And then finally, this weekly candle closed above it. Okay. Which is a really good sign, right? We can see that the kind of over the last, a few months, there was a short-term horizontal support here, which we see by this black line, right? So it's been hit once, twice, 3, 4 times, right? And now we're kind of above it, moving further upwards. One thing to notice is when we did see the lowest point here of the S&P 500, you'll note that the index has actually bounced off of the 200 moving average on weekly candles here, right? So pretty strong level of support. In addition to that, we can see, the support that was started during the COVID pandemic here, okay? And now connecting with the 2022 bear market, right? So that's kind of our last level of support. So we can kind of also now see a zoomed out picture, a longer time frame of that resistance level that's running diagonal as well here. So again, we're looking at that on the weeklies. We're looking at kind of the next stop being right around here, right, for some strong resistance, which is about a 425, call it. Okay. And another crucial thing on the weeklies here is that this week has closed above the 50 moving average, which is this blue line running over, right? And that's a pretty bullish scenario on weekly candles, right? So that's one of the benefits of the S&P 500 and its performance last week. Finally, let's look at the monthly charts for the index here. If we look at the monthlies, again, we're going to see here that this candle here, again, it's not finished yet. We still have Monday and Tuesday as trading days, and then obviously the FOMC decision. But we see that the index in January so far is up 5.54%, right? So ideally, we want to see this candle finish above the previous red candle, right? And then you'll notice that there is a horizontal resistance line running across that has been, tested several times as a support and then later turned into resistance and tested pretty much throughout time, right? Since about, we see down here, since about April, okay? So if you look here, April of 21, okay, this horizontal red line here has kind of served as a support and resistance. So we're definitely going to see the S&P 500 get tested there, which is at about, call it at 445, 450 level. But even though the distance here looks short, we're obviously quite a bit from there. We're about 45 points out of that, which you can see, okay? And at the end of the day, the index is either going to hit that and then come back down towards the support level, right? Or it's going to breach and keep advancing higher in hopes of making higher highs from the previous highs levels, okay? Which were the high 400s. So also you'll notice here that we kind of, on the monthlies, we bounced off the 50 moving average here in October of 2022, which is that bottom for us, right? And we can see that long dated support. So right now, below the price, we have two strong levels. You can't really see the blue line here, but we have the 50 moving average, right, on monthlies, which is super strong. And then on top of that, we have the diagonal support here, okay? Now, it's interesting to note that with this 50 moving average, it's been tested during the COVID pandemic here, right? And then also in the 2018. So it's been pretty strong support. As you can see, every time we've kind of touched that 50 moving average, the index managed to rebound, right? So that happened here in October. So naturally, we should see further bullish movement.